Have you ever noticed how the hardest worker in the office is rarely the one who gets the promotion? Or how that one person who seems to do almost nothing somehow commands the most respect in the room? We're taught from a young age that if we're just good and honest and diligent, the world will reward us. But then you look around and realize the world doesn't work that way. It's frustrating, right? You feel like there's a secret manual everyone else was handed at birth. And you're just out here trying to play a fair game in a world that's rigged. Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power is essentially that missing manual. Greene argues that power is a social game, and whether you like it or not, you are a player. You can choose to be a master of the board, or you can be a pawn that gets sacrificed. This isn't just about being a villain. It's about understanding the invisible gravity that pulls on every human interaction. Let's dive into the first major theme of the book, which I like to call the art of selective transparency. In a world that screams for us to be authentic and vulnerable on social media, Robert Greene offers a cold shower of a counter-argument. Imagine you're at a high-stakes poker table. If you show everyone your cards, you lose. It's that simple. Greene suggests that by revealing everything, your goals, your fears, your next moves, you give people the tools to destroy you. This is why he emphasizes Law 3, conceal your intentions. Think of it like a magician. If the audience knows how the trick works, the magic dies. When you move through life without telegraphing your every thought, you create a sense of mystery. People can't predict you, which means they can't prepare for you. Greene isn't saying you should become a pathological liar. He's saying you should be a strategist. When you speak, speak with a purpose. This leads directly into Law 4. Always say less than necessary. We've all been there. The awkward silence in a meeting that we feel the desperate need to fill. But Greene points out that the more you talk, the more likely you are to say something foolish or reveal a weakness. Silence is a power move. It makes other people uncomfortable. And in their discomfort, they start talking, giving you more information than they ever intended. In this book, Greene highlights that powerful people impress and intimidate by saying less. It's the difference between a king who nods once and a jester who won't stop rambling. By holding back, you increase the value of your words. It's basic supply and demand. The less you provide, the more people value what you actually have to say. The second big idea we need to unpack is the currency of reputation in our modern age. We call this personal branding, but Robert Greene was talking about this way before Instagram existed. Law 5 states that reputation is the cornerstone of power. Imagine your reputation as a literal shield. When it's strong, it protects you from the arrows of your enemies and wins battles before you even step onto the field. But once that shield is cracked, once people perceive you as weak, dishonest, or incompetent, you're vulnerable. Greene's analysis here is profound because it forces us to realize that perception is reality in the social world. It doesn't matter how hard you work if everyone perceives you as lazy. It doesn't matter how honest you are if you have the reputation of a snake. This ties into Law 6, court attention at all cost. This one is controversial because it suggests that being ignored is worse than being attacked. Think about the most famous people today. They aren't necessarily the most talented, but they are the most visible. In Greene's framework, visibility is a form of power. If no one knows who you are, you have zero influence. You need to create a persona that stands out from the crowd, whether it's through a specific style, a bold way of speaking, or a track record of radical results. You must avoid the gray middle ground of being just another face in the crowd. Robert Greene suggests that you should rather be slandered than ignored. It sounds harsh, but in the attention economy, being a villain often earns more than being a nobody. The third major lesson is about the dynamics of distance. This is where Greene gets into the psychology of desire and respect. We often think that by being constantly available, we show our loyalty and value. But Law 16 suggests the opposite. Use absence to increase respect and honor. Think of it like a luxury brand. Why is a Ferrari more desirable than a Toyota? It's not just the engine, it's the scarcity. If you see 50 Ferraris on your way to work, they stop being special. The same applies to you. If you are always there, always saying yes, always available for every coffee chat and every minor crisis, you become a commodity. Your value drops. Greene argues that by strategically withdrawing, you force people to realize what they're missing. You create a supply shock of your presence. It's a move that requires incredible self-discipline because our instinct is to cling. But power comes from the ability to walk away. And speaking of walking away, Law 10 is perhaps the most practical piece of advice in the whole book. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. This sounds incredibly cruel at first glance, doesn't it? But look at it through Greene's lens of emotional contagion. Research shows that emotions and mindsets are literally infectious. If you hang around people who are constantly in crisis, who blame the world for their problems, and who thrive on drama, you will eventually catch their luck. Not because of some mystical force, but because their habits and perspectives will bleed into yours. Robert Greene is telling us to be ruthless with our social circle. If you want to fly, you can't spend your time with people who are busy plucking your feathers. Power is about energy management, and you cannot afford to waste yours on people who are sinking ships. Now, we have to talk about the critique. This is where the 48 laws of power gets complicated. If you read this book as a how-to guide for your personal life, you might end up as the most successful person in the room, but you will also likely be the loneliest. Greene's world is one of constant suspicion. It assumes that everyone is out to get you, and that every interaction is a battle for dominance. The critique here is that the book often ignores the power of genuine collaboration, trust, and vulnerability. In a modern workplace, the most effective leaders aren't usually the ones acting like 18th century courtiers. They are the ones building high-trust environments. If you apply Law 15, crush your enemy totally, to a coworker who just had a bad day, you aren't a strategist, you're just a jerk. The book is brilliant at describing how power can work in competitive, cutthroat environments, but it lacks the nuance for building long-term, healthy human connections. It's a manual for the battlefield, not the dinner table. So, what's the final verdict? The 48 Laws of Power is a masterpiece of historical observation. Robert Greene has done an incredible job of distilling thousands of years of human history into actionable, if often, dark principles. Is it evil? No, it's a description of human nature that we often try to ignore because it makes us uncomfortable. I believe everyone should read this book, not necessarily to become a manipulator, but to become unmanipulatable. You need to know these laws so you can recognize when they are being used against you. It's like learning self-defense. You don't learn it to go out and pick fights. You learn it so that if someone tries to corner you, you know exactly how to get out. If you want an actionable step for today, start with Law 4. For the next 24 hours, practice the art of saying less than necessary. In every conversation, every meeting, and every text thread, try to be the person who speaks the least. Listen more than you talk. Watch how people react to your silence. You'll be amazed at how much more you learn and how much more weight your words carry when you finally do choose to speak. This book reminds us that while we'd love the world to be a place of pure sunshine and rainbows, there are shadows everywhere. And it's much better to have a flashlight in the dark than to pretend the dark doesn't exist. Thank you for staying with me through this deep dive into Robert Greene's world. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next chapter. We're going to keep tearing apart the world's most influential books to see what actually works and what's just noise. Until next time, stay sharp and remember, the game is always on, whether you're playing or not. See you in the next one.